made this video that none of you watch, got a little over 1,000 views. And in this video, this particular person showed how she went from starting off her business in construction to building up more than $500 million in bonding. We're going to break down the 6 steps that she did and how you can apply those to your construction business to learn how you can start growing and scaling your organization so that eventually you can start doing international contracts like this particular podcast guest that I have. If you're interested in that, stay tuned till the end of the video. We're going to reveal what's the video that it was and also the person's name so that you can go back and follow her and see exactly the things that she did. So in this particular video, the first thing that the person did was they focused their strategy on federal. So when they came into the marketplace, they weren't all over the place. They were saying to themselves, we're specifically going to go after the federal contracting world. And so what they did was they started putting their infrastructure in place to meet agency-specific demands. What does that mean? They start looking at opportunities of working with or how to work with certain government entities and agencies. How do you do that? You do that by starting to look at RFPs, RFQs, and see what the requirements are. They intentionally design their particular business specifically to go after the federal construction market. So what does that mean? Understanding what are those requirements and how to comply with them. When you are looking at state, local, and different types of contracts, they have different requirements, but specifically they focus in on federal, and then they define their target audience as Army, Navy, and Air Force. The second thing that they did was looked at IDIQs as a path to massive growth. So again, for those of you who are not aware, IDIQs is a form of contract that the government uses in order to have long-term opportunities that only a select group of small businesses can exist or be on for a period of time. So what that does is it allows you to pre-qualify for these contracts, and then you have them for 5 years and some even as much as 10 years. So they use IDIQs as a pathway for massive growth. And so what happened was from that point, their bonding capacity increased from $250K to $500 million. And so what it did, though, again, that's over the many years they're in business. However, what it did specifically for you and what it will do for people like ourselves is it allows you to have predictable streams of revenue. So again, it gave them predictable streams of revenue. It allowed them to increase their bonding capacity, and it allowed them to scale through this different contract strategies. Number 3, scaling with strategic partners. So I know a lot of us, we hear about the word partnerships and what does that look like, but they had a very specific strategy of how they approached and start working with partners. So if we look here, again, early federal advice drove mentor-protege pursuit. So what does that mean? Now that they've got contracts, now they've got some IDIQs on their belt, they looked at the mentor-protege program. They also looked at partnering with a mentor and combining resources, but they didn't just choose any mentor. They were very strategic in their mentors. They also utilized the 8A program strategically. And again, utilizing the mentor-protege program and the 8A program, they were able to get approval in 6 months' time for their very first contract award using these particular strategies. Now let's talk about the strategy they use for a mentor. Are you frustrated and you still haven't figured out how to do federal contracts just yet? Join us May 28th, our next cohort for our GovCon Accelerator. Visit below govconcoaching.com for more information. But we've got all new 2025 trainings. We've got new templates. We've incorporated some of our past boot camps, like our first partner challenge and our proposal boot camp that's included. Plus, we're bringing in industry experts to help teach some of the trainings and provide some of the additional resources that you need in terms of learning from people who are actually doing this in the field. No one else is doing anything like this. In addition to all of our email scripts, phone scripts, everything that's in our GovCon Vault that has all the templates that you need that you can plug and play into any of the AI tools. Plus, depending upon where you're at, we've got new AI tools to help automate the process of doing the activities that formerly took hours and hours and hours. They're now taking minutes using AI and some of our other programs. If it sounds like something that you're interested in, visit govconcoaching.com for more information. We look forward to seeing you on May 28th. So again, when most of us decide on the type of mentor we want, we just feel we'll take whoever comes to us, right? So you're like, I don't care, I'll take whatever mentor. But this particular entity, they were very smart in how they chose their mentor. Now, I don't know if they got this advice from someone like myself or a consultant who told them this, but they chose a mid-size mentor, right? So what is mid-size? Mid-size mentor means someone that is, say, $2 million to $50 million, right? in the small business arena, large is above, right, the 45 million threshold. So again, someone in that maybe 2 to 10, $2 to $25 million threshold. We've had those kind of guests on our show before, like Angie Martinez and also Frank Spencer as tech contractors. So again, choosing a mid-sized mentor allows them to have substantial resources and guidance. They also understand the small business program, right? So they understand small business set aside, they understand contract nuances, they understand the preferential treatment that those programs come with. So you don't have to sell them on why that's important. And they also are not so big to where is you get lost in the shuffle, right? You're just a number. You're part of the thousands of other people that are on their bidders list, right? So having a mid-sized mentor allowed them to, right, understand the nuances. They didn't have to explain it. Were able to provide them with capabilities that they didn't have. And then also, as you start to grow, they understand, they can explain to you what happens when you graduate from small business status. And for this particular guest, it was the ideal balance between big support and focused attention. Number 5, they use competitive advantage was self-performance. So a lot of us, as we start to grow our businesses, we think about middleman contracts. And so in the beginning, middleman is a great strategy and it allows you to do bigger projects and also to take on less risk. But if you want to really build a company that's going to go from small to mid-size, right, or large business by definition of the government, then really we have to start focusing on what things can we self-perform and what team members can we bring on to allow us to do that. So this particular organization, what they did was they retained expertise to allow them to self-perform certain portions of the contract. For example, the client that I work with, they self-perform demo, they self-perform asbestos remediation, they self-perform some drywall things. And then I've worked for people who self-perform painting. I've worked for contractors who self-perform HVAC services. So again, what area of expertise can you self-perform with some leadership on hand that will allow you to have a competitive advantage and also differentiator? In this particular case, this person performed mechanical construction was their expertise. And so that led to them having that differentiator. And so again, through self-performance capability, that enhanced prime bid opportunities for this particular person. And then the last thing, what CMS, abundance thinking, ensuring success. So they avoided a scarcity mindset, which I find a lot of people in the industry tend to have because we're thinking, well, we're limited by bonding, we're limited by people, we're limited by the shortage of workforce. And so with that type of thinking, it's really difficult for you to say, I want to scale internationally. I want to go after projects outside of my local area or my local region because you're only thinking short-sighted. I gave the example on previous videos where I found a young man who did flooring contracts, and he literally went to this particular facility and said, hey, you are constantly changing out your flooring. Why not create a flooring IDIQ so that you can have a pool of vendors that can just focus on the flooring whenever you need that type of work? And so that having that type of abundance mindset allowed him to come up with an idea where the government created a literal IDIQ specific to flooring because they replace floors and carpet that often that they actually thought about it, it made sense to them, and then they developed this program specifically because this person requested it. So again, it doesn't have to happen for all of us. They looked at win-win in their JV partnerships. That was the key to success. So again, looking at how to both parties win, fair revenue sharing builds industry relationships. So again, a lot of us are thinking, well, because the rules say 59-41 or 51-49, that's what you have to abide by. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's fair and equitable based on the work that's being performed. So again, looking at fair revenue shares and then advocating for long-term abundance thinking focus, that also made a big difference, right? A lot of us, and I've said this before in some of my videos, when I approach teaming partners, particularly in construction, when I'm approaching subcontractors, I always say, hey, listen, if you help me bid this, I'm going to stick with you till the end. A lot of times we're just asking people to bid with us and, hey, can you just bid this with me and help me on this one project? Or this is, and we're not telling them, hey, we've got a strategy to do this long term and we want you to be our partner long term. So again, having that type of mindset made the difference. Building relationships over competition was a core theme. And I know that we all say that, but we don't all do it. So again, these were the 6 strategies that they employed. Now let's go to the final reveal. Here's the video. And so this is the video from zero to global giant with CMS and Mercedes Enrique. And actually, Mercedes and I met this past week in person live at a conference and event. And so it was interesting because as I was preparing for that particular event, I pulled down all of the things that she discussed. She went on to expand internationally and is now following those same government clients all over the world and are operating in 30 plus states and several countries, and now has become a global presence. So I hope this was helpful for those out there starting in the construction industry. I hope you learned a lot and look forward to helping you and supporting you in your journey. As always, we're here for you. If you need any help or support, below we'll have information for as far as getting in touch with us. If you want to do an assessment call and figure out where you're at, if you'd like help with BD or assistance in growing your construction business, or if you are any of the trades like painting, architect and engineering, if you're any one of those trades contractors and you've been struggling with trying to figure this thing out, reach out to us and we'll be happy to have a conversation. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.